Okay, good morning. Good morning. What a group. What a group. It's so exciting to be here to share with you today the topic of leader or lagger. You know, when it comes down to talking about leadership, either we're a leader or we're a lagger. You can't be a little bit of a leader and then you go over to the lagger side. Either you're a leader or a lagger. You have your notes in front of you. And what we're going to do, we're going to use this acrostic, and we're going to come back, and we're going to show you the difference of what a leader is and what a lagger is. Now, all of us in this room must realize one thing first, and that is we're here by choice. We've made a decision that we wanted to manage or lead people. And if, after the day, you'll say, you know what, I'm more of the lagger instead of leader, then you go home and you go do something else, because life is too short. You've got to ask yourself, am I truly a leader? Am I willing to take the courses, the education, the time to develop my leadership skills and to do what is necessary? And there is a difference between leadership and management. For example, in the newsletter that we all got not too long ago from the Real Estate Leaders of America, it says a manager has his eye on the bottom line, a leader has his eye on the horizon. And there is a little bit difference of managing and leading. Let me just look at the leader and the lagger. If you look at the definition on your notes there, it says that a leader guides on a way by going in advance. The lagger, listen to this definition, I love it. To stay or fall behind. Do any of you have any managers that you're responsible for? Because we all here are either broker owners or we're running companies with other managers on this. Do you have anyone that's falling behind? You know, in their offices and their responsibility? Anyone? All right, we have some, right? They're lagging is what they're doing. And what is to stay or fall behind, to move, function, or develop with comparative slowness. Do you have anyone that's developing with comparative slowness? Okay, they're lagging. They're not a leader, they're lagging. Now listen to this. Here's the one I like. This is Webster. To become retarded in attaining maximum value. To become retarded in attaining maximum value. And what we need to do is the people who are falling behind, the people who are not developing, or they're developing with comparative slowness, we need to make a determination, are they a leader or are they a lagger? And if they're a lagger, you better find a good leader for that particular office, or you're going to be in real trouble. Because what do you do with someone that's retarded? You put them in a place that's good for them, and you try to work with them in a different way, and you don't have them leading other people. Because if you have a retarded person leading other people, what happens to the people under him? They become a little retarded themselves sometimes. They won't become productive, and they'll develop very slowly. So to become retarded in attaining maximum value, to slacken or weaken gradually. And that's what we want to talk about today, the difference between the leader and the lagger. And before we get to that acrostic toward the end, I just want to start out by going over a few questions here. And see, this group is really on the ball, and I bet you we just fill in the blanks with no time at all. What business are we in, first of all? What business are we in, Gloria? People and service. Whoa, that's great. You got the first one right. What is that worth? Okay, we're in the people business. And you said service, but there's something else. That's true, people and service, but what else are we in? What is our main function of running a company? What is the main function of being in business? Ah, you hear that? Profit. Jim gave us a good presentation yesterday. We're in the people and profit business. And we must keep those two things in mind. So many times we think we're in the brokerage business. We think we're in the real estate business. But we're not really. Remember, you know, when they talked about the railroads of yesteryear, a lot of people thought they were in the railroad business instead of the transportation business. And every time I talk to salespeople, I try to get them to focus on what business are they really in. When I talk to managers and leaders, what business are you really in? And we are in the people and profit business. And we must create a what? We must create, as leaders, we must create a what? I didn't hear you. A plan, absolutely. A leader better have a plan or he's not going to know where he's going. What else must we create? An atmosphere. What else? It must create attitude within the office. It must create goals. Let's do it this way. They must create a clear vision of what? Of where we are what? Going. And how we're going to get there. You've got to be able to say in one sentence to the people that you're leading, gang, this is where we're going, and we're going to go for it. You know, I remember hearing the story of the commander of a naval ship. And when he got toward the enemy soil, he said, okay, everyone off the boat. And they got off the boat and started heading toward the island where they're going to go and capture it. And you know what he did? He turned around and said, burn the boat. Burn the boat. No going back. There wasn't any options. He was going to conquer that territory. And he made it very clear to his people. He says, this is where we're going, and how we're going to get there in these little boats. But guess what? We're burning the things that lie behind us because we're going forward. And we must, as leaders, create a clear vision of where we are going and how we are going to get there. Somebody share with me the vision for your company in one sentence. What are you telling your people? What are you telling your people? A clear vision. What is the thing that you always say? It takes one sentence to say it. Anyone?
Most professional quality firm.
The most professional quality firm? More quantitative. Number one in what? In market share? Number of agents? Dollar volume? In what? Make sure you identify your vision in one sentence. One sentence, and not a whole lot of, nice sounding, words that fit together, but we are in business, folks. You and I together, we are going to go and we are going to conquer 50% share of this marketplace. We're going to have 150 of the top professional people in this location, in this geographical area, and we will obtain 50% market share, and each and every one of us get ready, because we're going to increase our incomes by 40 to 75%, and some of you in this room, you're going to be increasing your income by over 200%. Are you ready for it? And they go, yeah. No, are you ready for it? And you've got to get them excited about your sentence, your vision, and it must be that simple. And every time you're in front of them, you've got to remind them of it, because if they don't see it up here, will they ever accomplish it? If you don't see it up here, so you better get it down to one sentence in order for it to take effect. And you got to just keep telling them where you're going. Tell them where you're going. Kennedy was one. He says, we're going where? To the moon. And all the critics said, what? Why? He says, what was his answer when they said, why are we going to the moon? Remember what his answer was? He says, why does the mountain climber climb the highest mountain? He said, we choose to go to the moon. See, a good leader doesn't have to give a whole lot of reasons, but he has to create a whole lot of excitement, and it's more than just excitement. You've got to believe in it yourself, and then you've got to lead, as our thing here says, you guide on a way by going in advance. If you're saying, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to capture the market share, we're going to have 50% market share, 30% market share, all of you are going to increase your incomes, they better see you leading. They better see you at your Chamber of Commerce is trying to build the image of the company. They better see you out there recruiting good salespeople and getting rid of the deadwood. If you say, gang, we're going to sell more houses in this new development than anyone else, and we're going to sell out in 2 years, 3 years, and here's the way we're going to do it, and then you keep poor salespeople on staff, your vision is nothing. You're not being sincere, and you're not being an honest person, and they see that, and so they're not motivated as well. But if they see you in there saying, hey, we've got to get productive, I'm sorry, you need to go and do something else, and we're going to bring another top person and upgrade the sales staff, they're going to say, this is the place that you get excited. I've had people time and time again in the different areas that I've been responsible for in developing salespeople that said, I don't like this. This is getting too much pressure. You don't seem to have the warm touch. And anytime it's a turnaround situation, you've got to really be balanced with the warm touch and the pushing. You've got to have more pushing than the warm touch, and know exactly when to give them a little bit of the warm touch. And in the past year, I've been involved in the company where we're having a turnaround situation, and I've had a lot of complaints and had people write notes to the human resource people, and well, I don't know it like this, but now, you know what they're saying? Because their incomes are going up, and things are exciting, and the newspapers are writing about them, and they're saying, boy, this is great, we did it. And there I sit in the background, I says, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right. And we just keep promoting the people how great they are, and we're just giving them a clear vision. That's what we all need to do. And that includes, and that must include, to show our people how to build a viable business. By the way, if I happen to spell one word wrong, don't you dare criticize me. You know why? Because I feel and I believe that anyone that knows only one way to spell a word lacks creativity. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll get it straight. Show our people how to build a viable business. You see, that's our job, is to help them build little businesses within our business. And it has to be in stages and at different levels. For instance, if you have a person who did $35,000 in personal income last year, you don't say to them, hey, you ought to do $125,000 next year. You do it in stages. Say, you know what, I think you can take that 35 and make it 65 next year. Would that excite you? What are your personal values? And you've got to find out what your people's values are, and then get them to set goals to match their values. And it's got to be in stages and at different levels, and that's our job, is to get them to build viable businesses within our business. The main goal must be to raise their level of what? Raise their level of raise their level of thinking. You've got to get people to think differently. If they keep thinking the way they always thought, what will happen? They'll get the same results they always got. We've got to raise the people's level of thinking. And I'm going to show you how to raise people's level of thinking. And it's the same way, if I want to raise the level of water in this glass, what do? Just keep a little bit, right? A little bit more, a little bit more. And then what happens? You just keep filling that baby up, and you keep raising the level. And pretty soon you know it gets to be a full glass of water. And then what happens? The cup overfloweth. I wouldn't do that to the hotel. Thank you. There you go. That's for you. But, you know, the cup overfloweth, and what happens if you start raising their level of thinking and it starts overflowing, where does it fall to? It falls to Jim here. If I help raise Carol's level of thinking and she becomes, you know, to the point of where it's overflowing, she's going to start spreading to Jim. She's going to say, I'm going to have to give some of this stuff away. And so you raise their level of thinking. And we'll talk about the how-to on that. And to build them as a what? To build them as a person. To build them as a person and a professional. I don't know about you, but the one thing that disturbs me about our business is that we still are only held to the degree of professionalism of that maybe right one step above what? We've heard it before, used car salesman. And then, even then, there's some doubts, right? That bothers me. I've been in this business 15 years, and it was something that helped grow me as a person. And I take it very seriously. And the thing that bothers me is that leaders all across this country are not developing salespeople in this business. And not only this business, but every business. They don't develop the people first. And I'm not the type of person who says, oh, people always come first, people come first, then profits. No, they're synonymous. People and profits go together. You know, there's a famous person who said, J.C. Penney said, the making of money must always be the byproduct of the building of men and women. What was he saying about that? What was he saying when he made that statement? He says the making of money must be the byproduct of the building of men and women. What was his message in that quote? What does this quote say? The profit comes. You know, don't put your focus on, you know, making the money first, but build people. Remember, he was called the man of what? 1,000 partners? Remember that? He just gathered himself a lot of partners in this business. He wasn't afraid to give a piece of it away, a piece of it away, a piece of it away. And it was a man that knew great stress and great disappointment as well, because he went bankrupt a couple times in the beginning. But he just kept working at it and building people, and pretty soon they were so committed that they helped build that business, and it happened. And you got to, this is a repeat, so you got to get this one right. And building people means to raise their 100, A for everyone. Raise their level of thinking. That is what building people is all about. You know, I watch companies spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in trying to motivate salespeople. You know, I see companies, especially companies who focus on recruiting of new people. They just recruit and spend all that energy, time, money. We talked about some of the dollar figures yesterday, what it costs to recruit a person into this business. And we just keep doing that over and over and over again and not building the ones that we have first and have that base so we don't have so much going out the back door. And you need to put all of your energy, focus, and dollars into how can I raise their level of thinking. This is building people. You've got to raise their set point. Let me talk to you about how you really build people. Now, I shared some of this in Kansas City with a lot of you, and I just want to go back and repeat it because some of you said, give us more of the how-to. Well, the set point, okay, is let me just illustrate. All of us have different performance levels. Would you agree with that? Let's say this is our performance over here. This is this side of the scale. All of us perform at different levels. Wouldn't you agree? Do all of you have salespeople? You have 100 salespeople, and they all perform exactly the same? No, you don't want them to. You'll never get them to anyway. If you do, you're in for a whole lot of money. Let me tell you, it won't work. You know why? All of us have different performance levels that we operate at. Please follow me with this. This is probably the most critical thing you need to understand in leadership. And this is one of the most misunderstood concepts in leadership. And it's the reason organizations do real well for a few years and then they're out of business. Or they have a real good year, down 1 year. A real good 1 year, down 1 year. Because they don't stop. The leaders don't stop and understand human behavior. And what is our business? It's human beings. It's a people business. And yet we don't read, we don't study. Understanding the performance level. As we were saying, all of us have people that are operating at different levels. Now, just don't think salespeople. Don't think managers. Don't think business only. Think about it, people that you see in personal relationships, in marriages, the way they deal with their children. Some parents, man, their performance level is great. Others are way low. I mean, there's people that just raise the best children in the world. There's other people that abuse their children. Financial success. People perform here, people perform here. But in understanding salespeople, and we want to talk about different areas of our lives, but understanding salespeople, we've got to understand that everybody has a certain level that they're locked into when they come to work for us. Now, here is the high of their performance level. This is the low. Have you ever had salespeople that you noticed and you evaluate over a couple of years, 1 year, or take it on a monthly basis. That works a little bit better. 1 month, they're at $1,000. The next month, man, they may hit $2,500. But if you evaluate and put it on a graph over the entire year, they never went over $2,500 and they never went under $1,000. Have you ever noticed that? And you do it on a yearly income basis too after evaluating for a few years. And when I understood this concept, we were able to get productivity out of the office I first managed years ago. We had productivity of 21 listings per person per year, and we had 18 sales per person. And that was a brand new office that we had opened up in a real down economy, if you will. And we were able to build that kind of production by understanding this and how it functions and how to work with it. But let's say if we have that scenario on a monthly basis, $1,000 and 25 high. What do? We say, let's have a contest. Let's have a contest. Let's give whatever away, trips, let's do this, let's do that. You know the only thing that does? It may get your person who's producing at $1,000 a month to start reaching, but he'll hit his head, or she'll hit her head on the 2,500, and they won't move. They won't move beyond that. So a lot of times we say, well, the contest wasn't too bad. It did increase productivity a little bit, but have you ever noticed after the contest what happened? Right back down. Why? People start functioning at the path of least resistance. They start functioning, as William James said, we operate below our maximum and we perform below our maximums. And it's just a mental state that we have. We always operate more on the negative edge, just far enough away from the bill collector so they don't catch us. Just far enough from keeping a little bit of profit going so we keep things going a little bit. But why not just soar, to new heights in our business and get our salespeople to do the same? And what you have to do, you've got to raise this entire performance level. And now, instead of their low being 1,000, it's now 2,000, and their top is 3,500. Once you can raise this performance level, and you have a new performance level for that person, guess what? Your organization is going to grow in leaps and bounds. Your income is going to grow. Your bottom line is going to grow. And then you get this person to go from 3,500 bottom, and now their top is 4,500. Now, how do you do that? Let me tell you the way you do it. This over here is a set point. All of us have our set points. It's a mental conditioning. It's our self-image. It's the way we see ourselves. And this here is directly related to the way we have our set point. Wouldn't it be great if every one of you can go back to your offices and you walk up to one of your salespeople and you say, Carol, come here a second, and you just turn her head a little bit and just turn the knob and turn the thermostat up a little bit. Huh? Wouldn't it be great? And then you go right on down and you say, Gloria, hold a second. And you just go right and say, Ray, just a second. And you turn the thermostat up. Wouldn't that be phenomenal? And then all of a sudden, all three of these or four people are just producing a whole lot more. Wouldn't that be great? How would you like to do that? What would you pay me if I could do that for you? Put something on their head that you can turn. Big bucks? Good. Give me your name, a number. Because I can show you a way to do that. Now, but what happens, we live in a society that wants immediate gratification, and we don't do it long enough and study it hard enough and commit to it deep enough in order to make it happen. But what you can do, everyone in your organization, you can raise their set point. And some people you can't raise their set point. They're the people you need to go and have them do something else. And you've got to determine whether you're leading or lagging. And whether you're tolerating people that you can't ever adjust their set point to stay in your organization. And you can take this set point and cause it to move up. Then the performance level moves up. You get this to move up. It's such a joy when I work with a sales organization, and after evaluating after 6 months or a year, to watch the productivity go up. And to watch results that no one ever thought could be had. And to build a certain area and to see that thing grow and develop because people are raising their set points. And this here, there's no limit to it on what you can do with it and raising their set point. Now, people have certain limits. There are some people who will never want to earn $200,000 a year in this business because they're not willing to commit to what it takes to do that. They're satisfied with earning $60,000 a year. That's why you need to have your minimum expectation. Say, what is my minimum set point as an organization? And what will I live up to? And whatever your minimum is, people will come up to it if you're serious about it. And then you got to keep raising that up. You got to keep raising that up. And what you need to do is find out where people's set points are and just do it the following way. Now, we said this is in business. Same way with marriage. Certain people have a marriage that is functioning here. Okay? Here's their high. Instead of love, it's, you tolerate it. Okay? And down here, the worst part is that you hate it a little bit. Okay? Well, that's your set point. That is your set point. And you raise your set point up a little bit, then you go up here, hey, this is not too bad, I like this. And then you get a little smile on your face. And then down here say, well, once in a while it gets a little bad, but we can handle it. And now, the set point, as I said, follow this. You've got to understand this because I don't want you leaving the day saying, gee, how exactly does it work? You've got to understand the set point determines the performance range, and this is your self-image. It's the way you see yourself. For instance, in a marriage situation, your set point has been determined what your parents' relationship was like. Would you agree with that? Have you ever heard say, I'll never be like my mother, and you find yourself doing things exactly what your mother did them? I'll never be like my father, and you find yourself being exactly like your father? How many of you have experienced that? And you see the traits in you. And what happens, this self-image that we have of ourselves and the way that we see ourselves has been conditioned over and over and over the years. And you cannot, in running an organization, expect people that come from you. Do you know, we're in a very traumatic business. People come to us on what basis? They come either they're in a midlife crisis, they're changing careers. They come because they're getting a divorce, and now they want to enter the real estate business. They've got to get out and do something. What are some of the other reasons people join us? They lost their job after 22 years, and now they say, man, I got to do something different. And there's a lot of traumatic things, and these people come in with certain self-images and certain set points, information they had received over the years, and you do not overcome 100,000 hours of negative input in a week's training class. You don't overcome it. You just can't. That's why you got to create in certain environments in your offices to make sure everyone's set point is being raised. Make sure they feel better about themselves. Jim was mentioning the owner of Fox and Lazo. Every day he calls people who has a birthday, and he says, happy birthday. I want to wish you a good birthday. How many people is it, Jim? Over 1,000 people, 3-4 calls a day. Consistently. For how many years?
Been doing it about 3 years.
3 years. When you do that, you know what you do? You couldn't even see it if you had it on a graph. You probably have to put it under a microscope, but I'll guarantee you that raised the set point a little bit. I'll guarantee you it raised the set point. Now, what you have to do, though, you have to reinforce it with other good programs, for instance, that company has in process, and constantly with good training programs, things that keep raising that set point in good offices, and some of the managers were sharing yesterday some of the things that they're doing, and you start raising this set point of the people in your organization, the self-image of some of the people in your organization. Let me give you some specifics in raising the set point. Some of the basic things that I feel cause us to have a poor self-image or cause us to have less than a desirable self-image. And every single one of us in this room, we are exactly what we heard from the top of the stairs. We carry it with us, folks. The way you heard your mom and dad talk about you, the way you heard them describe you, it's there, it's ingrained. It will stay with us the rest of life, but it's changeable if you understand it and work on it. And the only way you can do that is by changing the input that you've received. And as I said, you cannot take 25 years of negative input and expect to change it in a year. You've got to take another 25 years and cover it up and change it with positive information. You know, it's interesting, Bill Glass, you know, many of us are familiar with Bill Glass, famous football player. He does a lot of work in prisons, and I heard him say one day at a session that he was doing that he asked a person on death row in one of the prisons, he said, tell me, how did you wind up, you know, just ruining your life and destroying your life the way you had? Had a long history of drug involvement and robberies and what have you, and then eventually murdering, wound up in prison for life. He said, well, he says, you know, he said, by the time I was a little, he said, from the time I was a little kid, you know, I got in trouble one time. My dad said, boy, you're never going to be any good. And he said, I did something else in school. My teacher says, man, you're a troublemaker. You're always going to be in trouble. And he said, and then eventually my father said, son, if you don't cut it out, one day you're going to wind up in prison. And he said, and I constantly heard that growing up. And then my mom and dad split up, and then my mom would say the same thing. He said, you know what, I just never disappointed them. And he said one day he was asking one of the famous quarterbacks that he was working with on one of the teams, and he says, tell me, he says, what brought you to the point of such a wonderful career in football and the fame that you've been able to acquire in this sport? And he says, you know, he said, from the time I was a little boy, he said, my daddy would take me out, and he says, he would throw me that football. He said, go ahead, catch it, son. He said, boy, son, that's great. He says, you know what, you keep that up, one day you're going to be a famous quarterback. He said, I'll just guarantee you, he said, you just keep working on it that hard. He said, go ahead, catch another one. He said, and I'd fumble and I'd fall, and I'd be a little embarrassed, but dad would say, hey, that's part of the game, son. That's part of the game, but keep it up, and one day you're going to be a famous quarterback. And you see, it's from the information that we have received, so the only way you change that information, and all of us have our stories. You know, I have my story. You know, the last of 6 children from a very dysfunctional family and almost into a very negative environment. And until I received different information, until I received different input, did this thing start coming up and start understanding what type of person I really was, what are my values, and it takes new information. And the thing that stops this set point from coming up, one thing, and we talked about that, and Gail talked about it quite a bit, and that is fear. And you know what? That is the biggest hindrance that our salespeople have. They fear going out and trying to develop new business. They fear what it takes to go out and get new business. They have all kinds of misconceptions. Do you know what fear is? Fear is false education appearing real. False education appearing real. We had Gail share with us that, you know, this climbing that she was doing, you know, to conquer fear, and she said, I just couldn't get up to that next level. And she said, and I said it was my physical, my knee weren't that strong, and my body wasn't that strong. But what did she say? The instructor said, no, it's fear that's holding you back. She said, and I did it, and I was elated. You know, one of the things we need to do is help our people conquer fear. You know, somebody said, if you do the things you fear the most, you eventually conquer what? Fear. You do the things you fear the most, you conquer fear. And one of our responsibilities as leaders is to go into our organizations, get people to raise their set points up a little bit, and make them stretch. Cause them to be a little bit better as a person and as a professional. And cause them to get new information all the time. That's why good training programs are important. You know, I do a library that I've developed in different organizations that I'll provide you with the information on. Build good libraries and good information for your people. Make sure they're checking them out. Make sure they always got some kind of tapes in their car. Make sure they're receiving new information on how to grow and develop as a person. And then also technical knowledge and product knowledge. And that they keep going to new heights. And let me just share with you some of the basic things that I think bring the set point up more than anything else. Little things, just in reference to the product knowledge. For example, you've got to get your people to understand they're professionals. You know, I can't wait for that group that I work with one day to be so professional that someone calls and says, I want to list my house, and they'll say, fine, you may see me in my office at 2:30, and then they keep the people waiting a half hour before they actually take the listing and information, and then they say, I'll give you the price, and it's contingent upon my inspecting the property, and I'll let you know what the price is going to be. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, they were that professional. And, you know, you say, oh, come on, wait a minute, Fred, with that competition that's out there and people dying for listings and what have you. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is so important. If you're going to change your programs to try to beat the competition, if you're going to change programs to try to motivate people, you're going to change all kinds of things to try to get people to act differently, you're on the wrong road. You've got to change their input. You've got to change their self-image. You've got to raise that set point. You've got to get them to see that they are professionals. And it is possible to reach new heights of professionalism. Listen to this statement. This is such an important truth. The decision of the buyer is always based upon the value of the seller, the person bringing the product or service. Dr. Dennis Waitley said that in one of his programs. He said, the decision of the buyer is always based upon the value of the seller, the person bringing the product or service. Why is it that a new person with no confidence can go in and blotch a listing, but someone, or go to try to prospect for new business, can come back and not have it, and yet a seasoned person just go in there and just knock them down and just move forward? Well, people say, well, that's because of their experience or product knowledge. Yes, partly. But mostly, it's because their set point is raised. Why? Because they've been in business, they've been receiving information that they're good. They took a couple out and sold them their first house. And they said, boy, you're wonderful. You're great. Will you come over and visit us for dinner? We want to show you the house and what we've done to it. Thank you so much. You know, one of the reasons that people don't develop new business, or they don't see people coming in the door as good prospects and customers, because of the feelings of futility. It's fear again. It's false education appearing real. They just had a deal that didn't go through. They just had someone that didn't buy. They just had someone that wasn't a serious prospect. So they have feelings of futility. And you go out with feelings of futility, your reception is going to be terrible. If I came before you today and I said, hi, I'm really glad I have the opportunity. I'm a little nervous, but, you know, if you bear with me, I'll get over it. How would you feel? Would you start feeling a little nervous? Absolutely. You start saying, oh, you know, because it's the value I bring to you. And what we need to do is get our people to overcome that fear, that false education they've been receiving that appears real to them. We've got to get them over this hump of the feelings of futility. Because the decision of the buyer, and that could be a person wanting to list a property, a person wanting to buy a property, or whatever else the case may be, the decision of that buyer is always based upon the value, the personal value that that seller, that person selling that product or service, is bringing to the table. And let me just give you an example. We've got to get them to understand they're a professional. I'll give you something that we're going through in our marketplace right now. How many of you are a little concerned about the bottom line? A couple of you. You understand? You're supposed to be a leader, you're supposed to be real responsible, you're supposed to shoot your hand. Yeah, absolutely. Let's ask you then, how many people are concerned about the bottom line? Absolutely, right? I mean, we've got to have some bottom line. I mean, that's what we're in business for, as Jim told us yesterday and told us so well. And what we've got to understand is that this is a profession. How many of you have personal accountants? Let me see your hands. How many of you think that you're paying exactly the same fee as everybody else in town? Any of you? You're not. I promise you. How many of you have family lawyers, personal lawyers? How many of you think you're paying the same rates as everybody else in town is paying? Okay? You're not. Why? Because that accountant, I have an accountant I know, I know it for a fact. I'm paying 50% more in fees, professional fees, to this accountant than I paid the guy down the street. Do you know what? I've been using him for 3 years, too. What, am I stupid? Why do I use him? Why do I use him, Jim?
Must be good.
He must be good. Why? Don't everyone use a pencil the same and a calculator the same?
Saves you money.
That's the key. I see value in what he's bringing to me. I think he can protect me. I think he can establish himself. But you know what? I know deep down inside the reason I stay with him is because I feel that way. Do you know I call him, I can't even talk to him? His assistant answers the phone. I'll say, hi, is Mike in, please? No, I'm sorry, but let me have you talk to Kathy, his assistant. And I know Kathy by now because that's all I always talk to Kathy. I say, hi, Kathy, this is Fred, is Mike in? Oh, no, he's not, but what may I do for you? How may I help you? And she takes care of it. She takes care of it. Never get to talk to the guy. I'm paying double what I pay the guy down the street. Why? Because of the value that he as a seller is bringing to me, the buyer. And the decision of the buyer is always based upon the value of the seller, the person bringing the product or service. The guy drives a Mercedes. He has a great, big, beautiful office. And I keep saying to myself, I'm paying for that stuff. But you know what? I don't care because I see value there. And we have got to be in the business of building value in our people so they can take that out. For example, what are they in business for? What are your salespeople in business for? To list and sell real estate. Okay? What else?
Make money.
Make money. Isn't it the same reason that we're in business? Well, let me ask you this question. Who are they in business to make money for? Themselves? Okay. How do they get to make money for themselves? What?
Make money for us.
Make money for you? All right, make money for you. Well, how else? First of all, who said that? Make more money for the prospective client or whoever it is. Our job, don't most of us represent the sellers? Isn't that our fiduciary relationship? Our job, their job in this business, in selling real estate, is to produce profit. The same as ours. It's no different. And you've got to get them to understand that. Now, do you have some people in your organization that's probably better in producing more profit for sellers than others? I'm not talking about the number of deals they do, but that they can get more for a seller than maybe someone just graduating class? Is that possible? Yeah, sure. I know as a lister, I sold myself as a professional marketing agent. One year that I was in sales, I didn't have one buyer-controlled sale. I had all listings sold. Took every weekend off. Now, I don't advocate that because you're always out looking for new business. I liked it that way. I didn't want to have any buyers. I never put a buyer in my car except for twice. In 3.5 years, I sold. I love sellers. I love listings. I got it down to a science, and it just worked like clockwork. And I started saying to myself, I'm worth more than the guy graduating the class. I've been in this business X amount of years. This guy just graduated. He's charging the same thing I'm charging. I said, wait a minute, time to up my fee, isn't it? Do your salespeople, would you have a problem if they upped their fee? None of you? That's surprising. Of course we wouldn't. They deserve more. So that's one of the ways to raise their set point, to get them to understand they're a professional. Now, you don't go to your rookies and tell them this. I mean, you can share it with them if you want. But I said to my top person again the other day, now I've said this, I've been there a year, and I've been saying it to the top people for since I've been there. And I reminded her of it again. I said, Judy, how much are you charging for your service? She said, X amount. I said, when are you going to become the true professional that you really are and let the world know it? She said, what do you mean? I said, when are you going to do what my accountant does to me? She said, you know what she said? She says, but I'm afraid. That's exactly what she said. She says, I'm fearful to do that. Why? They're out there competing in the marketplace, da-da-da-da-da. But she's so good. I said, Judy, you don't even realize most people don't even ask you about your commission, do they? She thought about it. She says, you know, you're right. They really don't. They don't ask me about my commission. And I says, you need to raise your level of thinking. You know, I got it up a little bit the other day, I think. And I can't wait for her to try it. And I have a couple other people who have done it and tried it, and guess what? They don't go down either. They hold firm. And then we teach them how to do seller's nets. You know, everybody in your organization ought to know how to do a seller's net at the drop of a hat. Because when they say, what is my net going to be? Because when you're selling property, you need to get away from these kits. I believe in listing kits. We all have them, and seller kits, we call them. But you got to get them away from going and saying, my company's this, my company's that, my company's this, we'll do this, we'll do it. Because all companies are good in the marketplaces. Let me tell you something. Prudential's good. Coldwell's good. Remax is good. You're good. And so is the other guy. And if you're all going in trying to compete for this listing, especially when you go and say, we're this, we're that, we're this, we're that, and you leave, they expect you to sell it. And guess what? 75% of the time, who's selling it? It's a co-broker anyway. In our listing kits, and it's a good idea, we have about 3 pages of everybody else's cards. And we say, you Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're always out there, we're working with our network. And I make sure every one of my agents has other people's cards in it. I tell them what my in-house percentages are, and I tell them what the average is. The edge that we have, that we feel we have. But what's more important, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, is your objectives. When do you want to sell the house? By what time? You know, time always equals price. You know, if you say you want to sell in 4 months, then the price has to be this. If you say you can wait 2 years, then the price can be this. If you say the price needs to be this, then we got to jack the time up at the listing. And you talk to them about the objectives. Talk to them about the objectives. And you raise their set point. Remember, we're still in set point. You raise their set point by getting them to what? You raise their level of thinking all the time. Dollars for activities. You've got to raise their level of thinking about dollars. Does anyone have any, do you have any 20s on you? $20 bills? Let me just, if you don't mind. $20 bills? You have one? How many do you have? Several. Yeah, may I just borrow several there. Have any others? Yeah. May I borrow? Let's see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 so far. Did you give me 2? What? You gave me 1. Okay, so you gave me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. 6. How many more you got? I guess several. That's great. 7. Let's see. 8. All right. 9. 10. All right. Good. Okay, all right. So you got to teach them activities equal productivity. Now, how did I get that money? Woo! Isn't that simple? Now, we complicate this business. We do 4 weeks of training. We do all. You go out and ask for business. But let me tell you something to raise the level of thinking. And you've got to remind your people this, because you know what? We are a people that love immediate gratification. And what is our business? It's delayed gratification, folks. I can start working on a transaction right now, a for sale by owner or a buyer, and I may not do anything, especially in my marketplace, for a year with a buyer. They're still looking. We have people come down and say, oh yeah, 1 year we're thinking about moving down here to Florida, and I'll say, how long have you been looking? Well, we've been down here 5 years, every year looking. And so it's delayed gratification, let me tell you, especially in our marketplace. But what you got to teach your people, you've got to go to them and say, Carol, in this business, you got to understand delayed gratification and immediate gratification. And we're just prone to immediate gratification. But if you truly want to make a lot of income, you've got to see yourself building up to something. And you've got to make sure you have a commitment for activities. And Carol, let me tell you what really happens in this business. You pick up the phone and you start prospecting for listings. And you make a for sale by owner call and they say, yes, you may come by, I'll be glad to talk with you, and $20 fall out of the sky. And you know, if you call an expired listing and they give you an appointment, another 20 just drops out of the sky. You know? And you notice how much I respect other people's money, right? That's the way our salespeople respect our money. And you know, Gloria, you're holding an open house today, and guess what? You just got $60, you know? And you, Ray, you have just went out and knocked on 14 doors, and you got, you know, people that you talk to, you just earned $150 for your activities today. And you know, as you do that, you know, I would tell people that show up in the office on Saturday, and let's say we're going to work expired listings, and I said, if we get you to work expired listings, every time you made a phone call, you say, hey, I got an appointment, and you'd run out and you say, I'll be back, I'm going to go out and see them. How long does it take? You know, by the time you call them, you look up at the information, you go out and see them, what, 2 hours investment? Maybe 3. And you say, if you came back on Saturday and I handed you 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and I handed you $100, let's say if my average transactions netted me $1,500 as a salesperson, you got to have about, what, 10 of those appointments, maybe to equal 1 listing or 2 listings. Depends upon your marketplace. But you got to figure what out that is. And you say, and you have a whole bunch of money, and you say, and I hand you another $100, would you be interested in working some more expireds that day? How many hours do you think you'd work on Saturday? Do you think you'd work 5? How many of you'd stretch it to 12? Right? Wouldn't you? And we've got to realize that, and we've got to raise their level of thinking. How many did you give me? Well, I just want to make sure I didn't drop any. 20, 40, 60, 80, 1, 20, 40, 60, 80. Good. 2, was that correct? 2. Yeah. I mean, let's make sure we didn't drop anything. You didn't keep any, did you, Gloria? Okay. All right. But we've got to raise their level of thinking to understand, hey, guys, you better be willing to put up with delayed gratification in this business. How many of you agree that we suffer from immediate gratification in this society? We do. We want it. We want it when? Now. Don't make me wait, please. And the other thing that we need to do, that's just a couple ways in the professional. Now, some of the other examples are, we've got to teach our people to respect time. We've got to teach our people to have priority management. You know, this whole idea of time management, I love it. You know, time management is another book, another tape, another this, another. You can't manage time. Let me tell you something. The only time I have a problem with this thing not clicking is when the battery runs dead. I don't need to manage it. That baby clicks just right on the money all the time. I wish I could be that consistent. You know, second, just like that. Only time I have a problem with that not working is the battery runs out every couple of years. We don't need to manage time. We need to manage the priority and how much we get out of the time that we have. Wouldn't you agree? Now, let me ask you a real quick question. And I need you to write it down on a piece of paper. If you take a piece of paper like this, no, I'm not going to show you paper, and just write it sideways, as large as you could write it. I want you to write down an answer to a question I'm going to ask you. Now, it's just nothing more than a wild guess, okay? So don't get all hung up on this. You've got 1 second to write the answer. Just a wild guess. How many hours are there in a 70-year lifetime? Just write a number. Quickly. 1 second. Go. Just real quickly. Go. It's not hard. Just a wild guess. Okay? All right. Hold up your answers. How many do you have?
60 billion.
60 billion. Okay? 103 million? Or 103,000? 150 million? Or 15 million? What is it? 150 million? 15 million? 4 million? How many? Anybody else? Okay. 180,000? 1 million? Okay. 100 million? Normally, you know, I hear that. You know, when I ask people that question, the reality of it, folks, is that we have 613,200 hours in a 70-year lifetime. I put dollar signs next to everything. I didn't mean to do that. In a 70-year lifetime, we have 613,000 hours. Now, some of you, let me tell you, that was at day 1. You've used some of that up. 613,000 hours in a 70-year lifetime. What is half of that? 306, 1? Something like that? No, 3, 6, what is it? Half of that. 306,000 hours? 306,000 hours we use to sleep, eat, drink, bathe, take care of ourselves, and take care of us. Somebody says you don't have to work half the time in this business. It doesn't matter which 12 hours a day you work. I don't believe you have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Never have, never will. And I don't let any of my salespeople do that on a constant basis. I make them take time off. I plug it into their goals for them. I help them set goals for their personal goals. And we need to, one of our greatest responsibilities in raising people's set point is get them to respect time. You know, we need to, when we hold a calendar in our hand, if I handed you $500,000 right now and put it in your hand, would you just walk out of here feeling comfortable? All these people knowing you have $500,000 on you? I wouldn't if I were you. If I put $500,000 in your hand, I hope that when I put it there, you're going to feel an awesome sense of responsibility. But let me tell you something. When you put 1 year in your hand, you're putting 8,760 hours in your hand, half of which you have to use to be productive. That is one of the ways you've got to raise people's set point. You've got to get them to understand time. You've got to get them to understand why it's so important to prioritize. You've got to get them to understand that life is short and that they've got to get everything they can out of it. And the only way they can do that is by priority management and setting some goals. You know, reviews. You've got to review your people. You've got to talk to your people. You've got to give them an hour, hour and a half of your time once every quarter or so. Say, how are you doing? What are your personal goals? You've got to look at their calendar and say, okay, do you have things plugged in for January? What is your activity level for January? How many sales are you shooting for? How many listings? I tell you, I bet you in this room, and as great as we are, being the real estate leaders of America, I bet you that 80% of our people don't have 1991 planned, specifically. Where if you look at a legal pad or something, they say, January, I'm shooting for 2 sales and 1 listing, and I'm going to do these many activities. I also have a little personal trip planned to 4 days on Thursday, the 15th through the 19th, the 4-day weekend, which is good in this business, so you can get someone to cover with you. And in February, I'm going to do 2 sales and 2 listings, and I have another 4-day trip planned in February, and whatever your personal goals are. And when I review people, I ask them to bring 3 things. I ask them to bring their presentation that they did, their marketing materials, a presentation, and a marketing plan, goal sheet that include business goals, personal goals, time off goals, those kinds of things, income goals. And I ask them to bring their appointment book. Because I just ask them, and if we had time, I'd gather a few of your appointment books and you look in it, and I'll guarantee you every single one of us suffer from the same thing. Most of our appointments are appointments that other people have set for us. Our appointments are usually, not that we didn't write in and we allowed the appointment to happen, but we don't have things in there, day off with the children, you know, a date with my wife. Then we, you know, wonder why sometimes, you know, certain areas of our life suffer. We got to get serious about priority management and managing priority and teach our salespeople how to plan. And Carol, I appreciate so much your presentation yesterday when you talked about getting people to make marketing plans for themselves. And it's become an agent's business and they have to be responsible for that. But every time you remind them of these things, guess what? They think that you're what? When you remind them of these things. What do they think you are? They think you're wonderful. They appreciate it. And you're talking about retention. You can have a lower commission split than anyone else in town, perhaps. And if you keep giving them ways to raise their income, ways to raise their set point, you're not going to lose them. There's such a loyalty and a binding to you because you've done something for them no one else has ever done for them in their life and helped them raise their self-image and their set point. And what happens a lot of times, people come in and make a lot of money in 3 years, 4 years, they get arrogant, they feel they don't need you anymore. And the reason that is because there wasn't a personal relationship with the leadership of the organization in most cases. And if there was one, they may still leave, but they'll come back, as Fox and Lazar was talking about yesterday. They'll come back because you've done something for them no one else has ever done. Some of the other things, quickly, the way you raise set points, is there's just some of the basic things. And I'll provide you with information. You've got to be a reader. You've got to be a studier. You've got to, you know, there's things like, little things like this, Sales Upbeat that you can get. Just little things that you have time to read. Executive book summaries that I like because they just take the important parts out of books and they send them to you. And, you know, we were talking in this meeting that the 70s were years of certain things and the 80s were certain things and 90s is going to be this and that. And every time I read some of those studies, I tell you, I don't know how to be much more than just basic and simple. And I know people's skills, J.C. Penney years ago. I mean, things like that, they're still the basics. And that is, you've got to work with people still the same way. There's certain maybe ways you approach it, but there's still, and you've got to understand the makeup of the people you're working with, but still, the basic things are the things that people, the reason they don't do well. Number one, you've got to teach your people to fail fast. You've got to teach them to fail faster than they've been failing. What do we mean by that? I've got a manuscript written. I thought that was the hardest thing I've ever done, but then when you try to get it published, that's even harder. And that's the way it grows, right? You think something's hard until you do it, then you realize it wasn't as hard as you thought it was until you go to the next level. And the name of that manuscript is How to Squeeze Success from Setbacks. Because one of the things I learned in this business years ago is that everyone was waiting for things to go well and that type of thing, and waiting for an ideal situation that never happens. And they weren't willing to go out and fail. And then when I started reading stories of great people, you know, you name them, Winston Churchill and Ford and all the great leaders, J.C. Penney, and a lot of their stories, I realized these people were nothing more than people who were willing to take risk and fail faster. And you need to teach your salespeople and raise their set point by understanding that failure is an event, not a person. The thing that causes feelings of futility in people and what causes that set point to stay set is that they go out and fail and they don't have someone when they come in and say, look, that's okay. Failure is an event, not a person. You're great. You're wonderful. You got to say, Carol, look, I know you're down, but go out and see Mr. and Mrs. Jones that you sold that house to 2 years ago, that young couple that love you to death. I want you to visit them today. And she says, okay, that's not enough. You're a leader. You got to say, Carol, where's your appointment book? I want to see you set it to appointment with them. Write down Mr. and Mrs. Jones and call and confirm it with them. Will you do that for yourself? And if I make her do that, guess what? She's going to say, oh, he's so wonderful. Thank you so much, because you're going to go and see them. What are they going to do? They're going to pump you up. They're going to say, Carol, you're the greatest. Thank you for this house. We love our house. Because they go out there and they fail, but they don't understand that that's part of the game, and they got to fail even faster than they've been failing. The next thing, you got to teach them problems and situations, the difference. You know, I feel that one of the things that helped me build a very, very successful office, top out of 13 offices when I first started managing, was that we had a slogan in our office, and we said, none of us have problems, we have situations. None of us have problems, we have situations. They come and say, boss, I got a problem. I say, no, you don't, you have a situation. And in America, that's all we have. We don't have problems. I said, just think if you were in Afghanistan, or if you were in Bangladesh, or if your children were starving to death. You know, I got on the elevator this morning, and on walks a couple. The wife can see, the husband can't. It was a blind man. That man, in my opinion, has a problem. It's one he can't fix. When you can't fix something, it becomes, in my opinion, a problem, but then you learn just to move on, and you learn to respond and not react. And then you move on. But you got to teach your people and understand problems. I mean, all of us have tons of problems. We have our stories. And we think ours is worse than the next person, but I guarantee if all of us would write them on a piece of paper, throw them in the middle of the room, and exchange problems, in about 5 minutes, we'd be looking for our own back. You know, you've got to learn to enjoy problems. You've got to learn to enjoy the process. I mean, it is a situation. You know, I'd rather have business, quote, problems or situations in America than not have a business in Russia. Right? India, think of India. What is it? 1/3 of the world, no, 1/5 of the world's population in the size of that country is what, 1/3 of the United States or something like that? Can you imagine? I mean, literally, I was in the Merchant Marines when I was younger, and I never had the opportunity to go to India, but they said that when you would go up to Calcutta, up the river, that the state would put 2 people on board. One in the front and one in the back, and they'd have long poles. You know what the poles were for? They pushed the dead bodies out of the way so the ship wouldn't chop them up until the state got a chance to get in there in the morning and pick them up. People had committed suicide and jumped in the river because of starvation or thrown their children in there. Now, folks, to me, that's a problem. Would you agree? That is a problem. But in America, we have a few situations, and we've got to raise people's levels of thinking. We've got to raise our own level of thinking. We don't have any problems. We have situations, and we've got to raise our level of thinking. And then you've got to teach your people what real success is all about. One of the problems I have with sales organizations is that they try to pump people up by saying, success is driving a Mercedes, success is, you know, wearing diamonds, success is this, success is that. That may be an illustration of what you've been willing to give out. If people drive a Mercedes, in my opinion, it's a demonstration that they've given a lot of service to somebody. And they've been helping a lot of other people get what they want so they get what they want. And you got to teach people that real success is not the 4 Ps. What are the 4 Ps? It's power, it's position, it's possessions, and it's pleasure. You know, and I know that we've had certain power and put in positions of power, and it wasn't cranked up. You know, what it was it wasn't what it was cranked up to be. You know, or we've had certain positions. You know, we thought, oh, this is going to be wonderful, and then we realized, oh, I wish I'd give this away. I had a secretary tell me one time, she said, boy, I wish I had your job. You can drive around in your car all day long, up and down the Maryland coast, and you can talk on your car phone. She said, that's the kind of job I want. She just didn't understand what came with the position. And then possessions. You know, how many of us, I can't wait to get that new car. If I get that new car, oh, it's going to be so wonderful. And you get it, and how long does it last? 30 days? 60 days, right? Reminds me of the yuppie story. You know, a guy's driving around this mountain road and comes around a real narrow mountain road, and he looks, and my goodness, there's a guy on the ground, and the guardrail is busted apart, and he could just tell his car had just gone over. And this guy is down flat like this with his arms underneath of him, and he's moaning a little bit, so he realized the guy wasn't dead, and so he started to move, and he realized that the guy had his left arm amputated at about the elbow. And the guy starts saying something. He says, well, hold on, buddy. And he puts a tourniquet around his arm. He says, don't move. And he says, and he listened a little bit closer, and the guy said, oh, my BMW. Oh, my BMW. And the guy says, hey, buddy, what's wrong? He says, what are you saying? He says, my BMW, it's new. He said, buddy, he said, look, you're lucky you didn't die in that thing. He said, oh, but it's a brand new BMW. And he says, wait a minute, don't move. He says, you don't realize, he says, but your left arm has been amputated up by the elbow. And all of a sudden, the guy on the ground says, oh, no, my Rolex watch. You know, and so many times we put so much into possessions, you know, and that we think they're satisfied. And if we pump people up with possessions and they start getting them and they don't satisfy, what happens to them? Their set point starts staying still, or it starts even going down in cases. And the performance level will follow. So you've got to teach them that real success is stages. And it's also reaching goals. And that's why it's so important to reach goals, because that gives satisfaction. And you've got to keep getting them to set their horizons. My top producer last year kept talking about Hong Kong. She's been wanting to do it for a couple of years. And we said, set a date in 1990. Set it in October. She's had the best year ever in a down market. Best year ever. Now, I know that she better get a new goal. She better have it in running. She better have something else on the horizon and keep working toward it. And not that the Hong Kong thing gives her satisfaction in life necessarily, but it has pleasure and it has enjoyment because you reach the goal. And that's the way you raise set points. You constantly feed them that kind of information. And when you read other little information, you send it out real quickly on a flyer and some of these things. Here's another idea, business ideas and motivational ideas. Insight. It's a monthly thing that you get a tape and you get a book in writing. The thing I like about this, if you hear an idea on the tape you like, you don't have to take notes. You go right to the page and you copy it and you send it out to your people. You say, I just thought you wanted to know. 4 times a year, everyone gets a book from me. Either it's How to Win Friends and Influence People, a lot of Dr. Dennis Waitley stuff because I work with his organization. You know, a lot of his books. Or either it's something on parenting, or it may be something on marriage. They all get a monthly subscription to Selling Power. $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 on some of these things, and yet it works. It works. Because why? We're setting their set point. It's not motivating them. That comes with it. I'll have someone say, Fred, come on, I want you to come on up and I want you to do a motivational thing for us, and, you know, take a 2-hour and do a motivational thing for us. And I'll say, I'll come up, but I'm not going to do a motivational thing. I'm going to provide people with information. I'm going to raise their level of thinking, but I'm not going to motivate them. I want them to motivate themselves. You see, once you raise people's set point and you give them that, they start motivating themselves, and that's what's neat. And so you've got to remember the set point is on this side, and wherever that is, their performance range is going to follow. Quit killing yourselves to try to raise the performance level constantly, and they're hitting their head on the ceiling. Work on raising this set point, because it works. It truly works. And they start moving in the direction of their dominant thoughts. And then they need to understand exactly what you want from them. And this is where we come to the difference between a leader and a laggard. Let me grab this other. We've got to ask ourselves, are we leading our people in the way that we should be in some of the things that we just covered? Let's talk about the difference between a leader and a laggard. First of all, a leader lifts up. They lift up. And this is some of the things we've been talking about. You know, remember the J.C. Penney. You know, we become like J.C. Penney. And we build people. We are always involved in trying to raise the level of the environment that the people are in. We know how to encourage people. We constantly are encouraging people. You know, the word encourage is a very interesting word. The word cœur is French. And what does cœur mean in French? Any French people? Heart. It means heart. And the word encourage means you actually put heart into someone. And the word encourage means the ability to persevere and to withstand danger, fear, and turmoil. And the ability to persevere under extreme danger. That's courage. You know, our people have to tolerate a lot, and we need to learn how to encourage them, and we need to learn how to give them heart. Giving them heart is equal to raising their set point. and we need to be an encourager. We need to lift them up. And that's what a real leader is. A lagger, they're the type of people that look down on people. Yeah, my salespeople, they're goof-offs. You know, I got about 10% don't really do anything. You know, you hear people talk about them. You'll hear a lagger talking about the people this way. Yeah, my staff, you know, I've got 100 people, but only 25 of them are working. You know, they look down on people. And someone will come in their office, and they'll need a little help, and instead of lifting them up, they'll look down on them a little bit, and they'll say, you mean to tell me you don't know how to do this? You mean to tell me you couldn't get that listing? You mean to tell me that you didn't sell that buyer? Instead of finding out what exactly went wrong. Now, I'm not saying you just become all warm and fuzzy and say, oh, you didn't get the buyer. That's okay. Now, go to the next one, because she may be blowing all the buyers. I need to find out where her technical skills are, where her set point is, and understand exactly what's wrong. But encouraging is more than just giving warm, fuzzy words. It's taking the time and showing that you care and say, hey, let's go over your presentation. What exactly do you say? And that's part of the encouragement as well. The leader, he enjoys. He enjoys what? The process. He realizes there's a process going on. He enjoys the challenge. And he always is interested in growing. He or she is growing themselves. And a real leader is a person that enjoys realizing there's a process going on and keeps on focus and moving toward exactly what they want to do. And the lagger, aggravated. You find them aggravated a lot. Darn it, these salespeople, these lawyers, this real estate commission, this, that, here's the boss, ask for something else. I'm sick and tired of that. And they focus on the negative things, and you find them aggravated a lot. The leader under the A, you find out they do a lot of assessment. They do a lot of assessment. Number one assessment, what do you think it is? What's the number one assessment that a real good leader is involved in? What is it? Personal assessment. Self-assessment. They're always involved in assessing themselves. Am I doing what's necessary? I never forget in a meeting of a large group of people from around the country with a real estate organization I was with, and I was a senior vice president, regional manager with them, had a large region, and they were asking people to describe their regions and why some of them had certain pocket areas were having problems, and this person would get up and they had this wonderful excuse. I mean, it was wonderful. One day I want to write an excuse book for all of us this we can refer to. And another person would get up, another person would get up, and I'm so glad I was about 10 in line to get up and to explain. I had one little pocket of my area that hadn't yet come up. Fortunately, I had all other areas that didn't make it look too bad, but there was one area that was a real challenge. And it came to me, and I just stood up and I said, one of the reasons that I have a challenge in that area is because the regional manager is not doing his job, and I need to focus more on it. And I sat down. I mean, everyone just turned their head all at once, and I just sat down. And the guy that was leading that section of the United States, he didn't know what to say. I mean, and everyone else was having this 10-minute dialogue, 15-minute dialogue, and well, how about this, and why this, and why this, and what was it doing? It was spreading to the other person, saying, yeah, things really are bad in certain areas. And I just thought, the regional manager's not doing his job. I need to focus more. I'm not doing enough assessment there, and you need to assess yourself as a leader. What am I like? You know, am I doing the things that are necessary to get the results? If the results aren't happening, the buck stops here. And I need to do something a little bit differently. So they're assessing themselves all the time. The other thing is that they constantly are in the process of assessing others, and they make them better. They make others better. They're constantly assessing others, but not for the purpose of criticizing, but to make them better. And you know how they do that? By being what? Better themselves. You know, how many of you would like to have a better life? I've been married 18 years, happily for the last 4. It took me 14 years of practice. I didn't fail fast enough. Happily for the last 4. And you know, for the first 5 years, I thought it was all her fault. And it was. No. Yeah, you know, I thought, hey, you know, all these different, both of us, it's a long story, both of us came from very dysfunctional families. She was in and out of foster homes and very abused and what have you, and as a little child, had been married once before. I was 18. She was 23. She already had a 5-year-old. I mean, here I was, 18-year-old, 5-year-old child. I mean, we had our pressures. And, you know, I started realizing that if I wanted a better spouse, I better be better. If I want to have better children, I have 4 children, all boys except for 3 girls. The youngest is 11, the oldest is 23. And, you know, people talk about love relationships and families and all. My family, it's war. I mean, it's amazing the challenges of 4 and, from 11 to 23. But I say to myself, where can I be better? What can I do a little bit differently? And then I say, I know what I'll do. I'll plan a real good family event. And you plan the family event, and what is the 11-year-old says, I don't want to go. And the 15-year-old says, oh, why do we got to go? Why do we do it? So I say, where are all the good psychologists give you all the good stuff in books? I'd like to see them in action. Or either they usually have 1 child, But anyway, they constantly assess themselves, and they make other people better by being better themselves. They absolutely are involved in reviewing their people. They review their people, review their own progress. And the other thing is they have no fear. A real leader has no fear. And I mean that literally. That's not far-fetched. You have no fear. You're not afraid to tread on uncharted ground. If you know it's going to help you achieve what? Your vision. Once you set that vision, now I'm not saying you just go, you don't like it? You don't like it? Just get out of here then, and you just keep moving. Either it's my way or the highway. No, I'm going to talk about that. I'm talking about once you set that vision, and you know where you want to go, you also assess what kind of problems may come from it, but you're willing to keep moving. I mean, the people are grabbing you and saying, wait a minute, we don't want to go, and that's not right, And the other thing is, you tell them that, hey, we're going to make some mistakes along the way. We have so much fun with that, about how many mistakes I make and willing to fail fast. And, too bad you all have to suffer, but I'm sorry, but we're going to get better and better. And they enjoy that. They appreciate that. They respect that because they know that I'm assessing myself, I'm working on it, and each of you are running organizations that way too. And you're up there, from what I hear from you, you're doing the same thing, and that's why your organizations are doing better than most of them in your marketplace. The leader also digs in. They're a focused individual. The word focus means fixing, observation, constantly upon succeeding. Fixing observation constantly upon succeeding. And they're a focused individual. They stay focused. They're the people that take minutes of their managers' meetings. And they take notes, not for the sake of just taking notes, to see if they're still talking about the same thing they talked about a year ago. It's amazing, especially in a little bit larger organizations. I love it when I go in and do an evaluation. I'll say, let me see your manager's minutes. They're doing the same problem, taking care of the same problems they were talking about 2 or 3 years ago, but just in a little bit different shade. And this person is a person that takes management minutes so they can do something different, and he or she makes the difference, and they make it happen. They got the motto on their desk, do it now. They've got the motto on their desk, they live by the 3 Ds. Either they're going to do it, ditch it, or delegate it. They don't let it sit around and grow mold or get rotten on them. They either ditch it, do it, or delegate it. And they move on. And then, you know what, we're not comparing the other ones, are we? The laggard, let us go back to the G here. The laggard, instead of assessing, they guess their way through. They just assume, they guess, and they're not sure, and they guess their way through. Instead of assessing, instead of digging in, what do? They give up. They give up, and they give what else? Excuses. The leader, the real leader, always finds a way to get more energy. Always energizing themselves through reading, through studying, through seminars, through tapes, through books, through talking to other people, they're coming conferences like this. They energize themselves. They don't think they've arrived. A real leader never arrives. And that's the way they keep energy. The day you think you've arrived as a leader, forget it. You're going to run out of energy very shortly thereafter. And they have energy, and the other thing they have is empathy. The lagger, you find them exhausted. You see it on their face. And they have an ego. Not the ego drive that's important for leadership, but they have a self-ego. They want to gratify their ego. And I'm the boss. And usually the lagger is a person that walks around like this all the time. Are you happy, boss? Yeah, I'm happy. Let your face know it, will you? You know, and you'll find them in exhausted people. And then the real leader, they respond. Can you see this here? I drew that awful small. You know what that is? Thermostat. Thank you. Thermostat. The lagger, what do? Reacts. The leader responds. The lagger, they react. What is this a picture of over here? What is this? Thermometer. Good. The difference between a leader and a lagger is a leader is a thermostat. They control the temperature of the organization. They know when to move it up, move it down. They know when it's too hot, too cold. They are controlling it. The lagger reacts, and they reflect what goes on all the time. Market's down, they're down. Market's up, they're up. You know, people aren't responding, they're not responding. And that's the difference between the leader and lagger. So there you have it, the difference between a leader and a lagger. If you're tolerating management, if you're tolerating people in your organization, how many of you are looking at this parallel? How many of you said, you know, I have some of those? Any of you? You do? I tell you what, you better make a decision before you get back tomorrow, tonight. And you have to ask yourself, is this a person that's going to change, or is that just the way they are and they need to go back into sales and then work on raising their set point? Or if you feel you can develop them, you better spend the money, time, and energy to develop them. Because if they don't have these characteristics, you're fooling yourself, and worse than that, you're fooling everybody that's underneath them. And you need to dismiss them. You need to get them off and doing something else and get them out of your organization. It's too important. Time is too short. So, with these differences between leader and lagger, I hope that every single one of us, when we get to our next conference together, that some of you come up and say, guess what, I got all leaders in my organization. No one's lagging. Have no retarded people. Or no retarded people. And if you remember on the bottom, it says, let's just close with that, it says the laggers they stay or fall behind, they move, function, and develop with comparative slowness, and they become retarded in attaining maximum value, and they slacken or weaken gradually. So let's make sure we develop all leaders in our organizations, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you all. Thank you very much.